All right, let's jump into it. My name is Nick B, and let's jump into this week's futures overview. So, for the economic data, Monday's going to be pretty mute. Tuesday we have FOMC Waller. It's not much change. Wednesday, Fed Chair Powell speaks at 9:15 a.m. Thursday we have unemployment claims, and then Powell as well at 2 p.m. Friday we have consumer sentiment and the inflation expectations. Okay, so it's not really going to be too crazy of a fundamental week like it was last week. Thanks to NFP last week, we got a nice jump into the end of the week, but that doesn't quite mean that the trend is bullish yet. And let's start with ES first. We'll jump into that. As always, we're on the 2-year daily, right? Yep. Okay, let's clear this up too. Just clear the drawing set. Where is it? Right here. And let's start with what we know, what we have in front of us. So before I start plotting off the pivot points and, support resistance levels, can't ignore this right here, what we got going on. We have a trend line, not a trend line, but a channel here, and essentially, I'd like us to get above 44, really 44.30 would give us the green light to start aiming towards this R, at least by the books for me. The next R we would try to go for is 45.60, 45.65 area, because those were our previous higher lows, excuse me, lower highs and lower lows. So previously, I kept playing off of the pivot points of this high, lower low, lower high, lower low, until we had a flip in the trend right here. When was this? Most recently in June, where we got above the pivot point, the previous lower high of 43.25, and started to make higher highs. So essentially, that kind of gave us that confidence that, oh, this looks like a trend change. We keep going for the previous lower highs and keep taking them out, except we stopped around 46.30, which was the last pivot point. For ES, where we made the highs over here and started to make new lower lows and lower highs here until that changes. I think the trend could continue lower. It's very possible. But by the looks of the economic data, I mean, it just looks like it's pretty stretched here. Um, wow, is the feed lagging that bad? Yeah, on YouTube Live, it's lagging bad. Okay, that's all right. That's all right. But as I'm saying, until we get above the previous lower highs of, let's say, 44.30, you can't be confident in this push up. Sure, maybe we get a push towards 4400, but again, I don't think it would be time to celebrate until we get above the move of the resistance of 44.30, and then we can start taking a look at targeting 4500. From 4500 on the intraday levels, I'm going to break it down. We'll take a better look of what's going on the smaller picture, but the big picture in terms of direction up or down, you get above 44.30, you're going up. You're probably going to end up targeting 45.65 unless some intraday levels in between kind of stop us out. But until then, it's very possible that also we're in this channel here that we reject back down, and we may even come back down towards 41. What is this? 41.20 might even go lower. Who knows? We might even break this point right here, 41.20 lows, and attempt to come down towards 4,000, 49. I mean, 3,900. That's a stretch, but the possibility is there. So we have that up. Let's point out some SNRs. So I'm going to leave this pivot point of 43.27, all right, 43.25, as a guidance level. And I'm going to make it a different color so it stands out to us, so that we know what that is on the smaller time frames. This is going to be our guidance level, and when I say that, why I changed it from pivot, because it used to be our pivot, but that's not the trend we're following on price action right now. We are looking at the current lower lows and lower highs that we need to get above if we want to go higher. So as long as we're above 43.25, yes, it still counts as a support in my books. It's still pretty solid. If we can manage to maybe because we see like this little red candle forming here, maybe we come down to 43.27, and maybe we bounce off of it and attempt to retake the highs of 4400. above 4400, 4430, and 44 above 4430. We can take a look at long term, looking at 4565 area. Now, if we do break below 4325 into this week, yes, that could give us confidence for a continuation downside. But again, you have these tricky intraday levels on the smaller time frames. We're going to break it down right now. But my guess is below 4327 is 4300. Below 4300, it's very interesting the levels that go. It goes from 4280, 4260, 4240, 4220, 4200. Below 4200, you can basically look at targeting 4150, right? That was I believe that was Carlos's 61.8 fib on ES for a while. But 4150 last time, we respected it for a little until we broke down and made the lows of 4120 and bounced off of it. So that's a possibility, as long as we're inside this channel. You're not going to get this any clear moves. Again, even if we break below, 4235, for example, the previous lower highs, yes, again, it could give us confidence to the downside, but how confident are you that that move is going to continue lower? It's a clean 50-50. So I would either like a break of 4430 for us to go long, or ultimately, again, we could take those stabs at, day trading the moves on the intraday breakdowns. Let's say, especially 4235. I think that would be a solid area maybe to short and target 4120, since that was kind of like the bottom area for price. Or we could just wait, and if 4120 breaks, we can take a look at, shorting down to, my first target below 4200 ultimately was 4060, this wick right here. And then below 4060, you could target the bottom levels of these wicks. It was pretty good supply over here previously at what, 3950 to the downside. That would be fair. But again, also keeping in mind the round numbers, such as 4000, 4100, 4200, 4300. Those are all levels to keep in mind no matter what, because there may or may not be some kind of supply there. So if we do end up shorting at 4235, we're going to have to be on our toes unless 4200 breaks. When 4200 breaks, we could take a deep breath and, continue to target 4150, 4120. Below 4120, yes, we can target ultimately 4060, excuse me, no, below 4060, that's fine. But if we get down to 4000, and again, we can't break below 4000, I would look to exit. um let's break this down to the 4 hour, see what we got going on. Hey, JJ. Okay, so right now, again, as expected, we couldn't quite get above where we stop at 4391. So 4400 is our marker. Above 4400, we're going to get some room to head towards, again, 4430. This is going to be an important level, so I'm going to mark it up right here. And I also would like to make an alert at 4430. Let's do 44. You know what? 4430. Yeah, when we reach that, let me know, and then it'll ping off. And the other alert that at the moment I'd like to set is 43. Let's do 4325. Okay, perfect. So 4325 breaks, 4200 is probably going to be, no, excuse me, 4300 is going to be that first target. That's going to be, it's that round number. I just don't trust these round numbers on ES, because I've seen random supply and demand pick up around those levels. So yeah, I would like to short 4325 breaks down to 4300, but ultimately if you get below 4300, I see you have room, you have some supports built up right here. So this forms a bit of a channel of 4235, which were the previous lower highs. And for me to differentiate the channel that we're really in, I'm gonna make it white so it stands out to me. White. And then I'm gonna leave it because this is our 4325 area. And I'm gonna go ahead and mark this level white as well, because really, when you take a look at it expanded, let's expand it again back to the 2-year daily. Well, I have the alert there. can't see it, but this is really kind of the floor we're in between here for direction. If you want direction, we're either going to have to break above these previous session. Well, these are lower highs, these previous session lower highs if we want to go higher, or we're going to have to break below the previous session lower lows if we want to continue making lower lows. I mean, towards here, this would be ideally the first target, ultimately below 42.35. But again, I think if 43.25 can hold, why not take a chance at targeting 42.35? It could be lucrative. It's just a thought, just a scenario. But again, just to reiterate, for me, a solid signal entry would be below 42.35. Yes, then you'll have definitely more room to the downside, or above 44.30, and then you can target the bigger range resistance, which is ends at 45.65. I'm gonna mark that off here as well, and I'll make that color white as well, so we know that's kind of what our intraday target would be. So that's with ES, upside, downside. I'm not going to cover any more downside, or I'm not going to cover too much upside, because we need to focus on what's going on in the now. Would I try to short now? No. You want to give the market a little bit of time to develop. Things could change into Monday open. So let's just let price action do its thing for now. Let's monitor it. Let's see how 43.25 holds up. Again, on the big picture, 43.25 is still a pretty important level. If we can manage to hold this support, great. Then we can feel a little more confident at taking a stab going long if and when we break above 44.31. So that's kind of the easy, simple breakdown of ES for now. Let's move over to NQ. NQ has a similar situation. Let's clear the drawing set. And let me do my best to draw out the channel that we're in. So like this, I guess, really like this. So yeah, that's perfect. Okay. Now, similar, just like 43.25 is that pivot for ES, 13,750 is that pivot for NQ. And we are ways away from it. We came down as low as, what was this level right here? 14,140 basically. I remember we came down, we wicked, and then that's all she wrote. So this stands out to me right away, this support right here. Why? Well, we touched up on it once here. It's at 14.6. We touched on it once, twice here, and it acted as a solid resistance level for price action previously right here. So 14.6, yeah, let's plot this out here. We're gonna make it a different color as well. And it's gonna be our psychological SNR. So if we tank below 14.6, we know, hey, there's definitely going to be room to the downside. I think at below 14.6, we could easily take a short and maybe target, 300 points to the downside. I don't think that should be an issue. Um, Let me make this yellow, just similar to ES, so I have that color coordination. And let's, again, similar, let's look at the now. What kind of lower lows, lower highs do we have going on here, as opposed to what we had previously? Again, previously we were relying off a different set, off a different trend, I guess, setter, which were the highs at 16,767. Then we had the lower highs of 15,250, right? 15,270 basically. Then we have 13,750, and then as well as these lows, these lower lows here at 12, no, excuse me, 13,000. Then we have these lower lows at 11,094. Again, this is just, a stretch, but we could have, that's what we were relying to the upside, these previous pivot points and supports that we had happening over here. That's kind of what I was more so relying on. But again, now that we have new lower lows and lower highs, I have to turn my attention to here. I can still pay attention to the previous SNRs, but I can't rely on them heavily, because that's not what price action is doing now. Now price action has a different set of bones to pick, and that's going to be the previous lower highs and lower lows of these levels here. So right away, the channel that we're really in between, if we want direction, is 14.6 and this previous lower high of basically 15.5. And as I mentioned last week, 15.5, 15.5 and 44.30 are the levels we want to see a breakout of if we want a continuation higher. Until then, I mean, everything in between, it's a 50-50, similar to ES kind of looking like it's pulling back towards 43.20.27. If we break below 43.27, fine, okay? We're probably going to be breaking below 14.6 at that point in comparison. So if we break below 14.6 and 43.27, again, sure, we could take a look at shorting, maybe taking a stab at targeting the previous lower lows of 14.140, and on ES we could target 42.35. But really, if you want, I wouldn't even say, you know what? I wouldn't even say that, wait for a break of 14.150. You should have no issues on a breakdown of 14.6 targeting lower. So I just got caught up because I'm thinking about ES and in comparison, let me explain what I was thinking about. I was thinking that, well, Nick, why are we shorting at 43.25, but we might be waiting for really a break of 42.35. It's just personal preference. So what I mean by that is we can break 43.25 again and short it, very possible down to 42.35. But I guess I just have to give out options. So the safer option, I guess, would be, in my mind, is a break below 42.35 and you target the lows of 41.20. That would be much easier. And similarly, I was thinking on NQ, we could break below 14.140 and then target the levels of down towards 13,750. Of course, we probably target 14,000 first, then below 14,000, 13,900, then 13,800, and so on, where our base support is going to be 1370, 13,750. But I realized you don't need to wait that long. You could honestly, on a break of 14.6, in theory, you should have no issues, targeting the low point of 14,140 on NQ. So we'll see that. Again, this looks like we could be rejecting off the channel as well. And you might be asking, well, why don't we take a stab here? Honestly, you can. Again, I'm going to put that out there just because there's no right or wrong way to trade. There's many ways to skin a cat. There's many ways to do it. And again, you can. I don't want to be caught up between this range here. It's also the beginning of the week. I like to wait until Monday open until we get some price development for us to get direction. And then based off of a fresh open, a fresh start to the week, then decide what we want to do because things can change in between here. We could take a short here and then into Monday open. Guess what? We're squeezing out of this trend line, aiming for 15.5. It's going to suck because your nearest stop loss technically would be the resistance of 15.5. I wouldn't attempt that. I wouldn't attempt that because if you wanted to short, I'd rather wait for either a rejection of 15.5 and then you could take a short down towards the nearest support, sure, or a breakout of 15.5, which ideally is what I'd like to do to target 15.720 first, then 15.9, and then from 15.9 we could target 16,000. But again, that's ways away. I'm just laying out the different scenarios, different possibilities, what you might be thinking of doing, trying to consider that too, and just laying out, I guess, my opinion here. So NQ, again, 15.5 breaks, easily you can go long targeting 15.7, 15.720. 14.6 breaks on NQ, easily you can target 14.140 to the downside. I would personally target probably 14.300, which is kind of the midway point also, where we had our support right here formed. So we'd probably come down here, and if price action begins to stutter, slow down, meaning, we're probably not going to make new lower lows, we get out of it, and then we wait to see what price action does. Either it bounces and okay, we wait for a breakout entry, or we break below 14,140 and we re-enter a short targeting down to 14,000, ultimately support being at 13,750. Let's take a look at NQ on the 4-hour. What's going on here? Yeah, so typically looks like a rejection. Again, you could take this short. I'm probably not going to bite on that. I just want to let it do its thing because it makes sense that we pull back now too, because we had such a good push into last week. We ended pretty well. If you guys remember, we closed above 15,150 on NQ, and we closed above, what was it, 43.50 on ES. Let me check real quick. Forgot. Where did we close above? Yeah, 43.50 was that big level that we wanted to ultimately stay above. Let me see. Was this wick right here? 43? Nope. Right here. Yeah, so basically your 100-day EMA on the daily 2 year. That's awesome. So let's see. I mean, again, another thing that might play out on ES, at least since I have that up, we might come down to the 100-day, which is around your 4350 area, and we might bounce right off of it and attempt to go for 4400 and get to 4430. Now, I already can foresee and think that by the time ES is breaking out of 4400, I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to start buying there and go bullish. But again, the thing for direction is, if in correlation to SPY, if SPY can't get above 430 and ES can't 443, excuse me, if SPY can't get above 443 and ES can't get above 4430, most likely the move may reject back down, so it might be a short opportunity. Or the third possibility is we end up chopping between 4430 and 4325 until either or breaks, and then we get a move. Just laying out all the possibilities. um that's pretty much it. And again, this looks so tempting to short right here. I really wouldn't mind shorting here, targeting 15,000. I mean, as a first take profit, and then below 15, you can easily go down to 14,950, which was essentially what was holding the move up on NQ on Friday. Below 14,950, I don't even think 14.8 can save you, because it's probably gonna start taking aim straight for 14.6. You just have so much history here on price action. It's a pretty solid level. But again, let's see. I don't want to jump the gun. I don't feel like risking anything here yet on Sunday. We'll wait for Monday's open to come around, and then we'll make a decision on what to do. Again, not too much of a binary week, but we should get some kind of directional swings. Uh, we could take a look at really quick GC as well, since I have that up. Now, I guess given from the last week breakdown that I have the levels of 1975 and 2022-30, since none of this has triggered, I mean, and it's still very well respected between the levels that we basically plotted last week, I think I would leave this alone. And I think this is basically the setup on GC. I don't have to do much more here on the 2 year daily. If we get above 2022-30, I think easily you target 2048, 2050 easily with your eyes closed. You set your stop probably maybe to, I would set it to 2011 maybe. Give it that little bit of room, breathing room. Again, very important. I think that the 1 hour closes above 2022-30, and then you can go long. Again, targeting 2050, I think easily. If 1975 breaks to the downside, I remember 1950 was our support level that we wanted to originally go long, but we didn't get the chance. I believe we ended up going long. When did we signal out that gold trade? It was a few weeks ago, but I think we signaled it at 1980 or 1960, and we were able to ride it out to 2000, 2004, something like that. So below 1975, I wouldn't mind going short and targeting 1950 as the first take profits to the downside. I would set my stop 1980. Honestly, 1980 is a fair stop, because if price action decides to pull back up to 1980, I remember that being a take profit for us. And if we get above 1980, I don't want to say inevitable, but it's going to give confidence to kind of pull towards the 2000 area, 2020 possibly, um, given that we can't break below. So let's see. Let's see. On the daily, also kind of looks like a bull flag forming. Kind of. You got your base basically at 1975, and then if we want to draw out a triangle. Oops. If we want to draw out a triangle, we can, going this way, and then, nah, fuck that. You don't want to do that. Actually, forget that. Because you have the alerts here, so it's like if you do squeeze out of the triangle, you're like, oh, do I go long and I target 2022? Well, not really. That's probably not the best RR either. So actually, scratch that. Let's forget about that. So either 2022-30 breaks out and we go towards 2050, or below 1975 and you target 1950. I think that's with GC. Last but not least, because we look at CL, let's take a look at what we got going on here. Let me do the same thing. I'm probably going to plot up similar levels, but I just always want to show you guys how I do it from scratch. So what, I have an alert at 90. Yeah, I get it. Okay, I'll probably leave that up there. Now, this stands out to me, this level right here. Why? Well, I find it interesting where we made this new higher high above this previous lower high, made made a higher low, and then we continued to make higher highs until we got here. Then we made a low, a lower high, and then we're still kind of trotting in this area. Okay, so something tells me we're gonna have to go on the intraday levels to really find the levels that we're looking for. But first and foremost, I need to plot these levels out, especially where I have this alert at 90. Actually, let me take that out. Let me just keep it clean text. So okay, 90 is actually a pretty important level. If I extend this to the left, all right, you could see how it acted as resistance here, a false breakout here, all right? We broke out, we couldn't get above, what's this level here? 93.50, 93.56, couldn't get above it, and we kind of came back down, retested the breakdown, and then continued lower. So there's definitely history here. Same thing, you got a breakdown, a retest, and continuation lower. Again, we attempted to break out here, rejected, hell of a level right here. So I'm going to leave this up. This is what, 89, 83. Let's clean that up and let's make it 90. And let's also change the color of it because that is going to be our intraday zone, basically. That's going to help us navigate direction. I want to plot this out too, but I feel like there's not enough history. I mean, I see a point right here where like if I plotted right here, right, we have R here, we have I can't say this is support. You have support here, yeah, sure, price is above here a few times, and you trace it along. I'm gonna leave it out for now. I don't know, it's making me iffy, so I'm gonna leave it out. And then we have a floor that we basically created right over here on the wicks, which is at what, 78.20. Fair. Okay, so let's break this down to the 4 hour and let's see if we see anything interesting here. Hmm. You know what? Now it makes sense. Now I'm gonna plot this out. So what this tells me, what I've identified here, and let me clean this up as well, make it a little cleaner. Let's change this to white and let's adjust it to the wicks. I like to plot my support and resistance on the wicks, not the candles. Honestly, you can plot it on the candles, doesn't matter, but it's preference. Honestly, people might tell you otherwise, but it doesn't fucking matter. Okay, so you have your support here at 70, 70, 66. Basically, you're 78. You round this number up, 78. And then you have your resistance at this previous lower high of 90. So what we know for a fact is below 78, we can consider looking at our nearest supports of 75 first, down to 73.85. Below 73.85, probably you're going to come down to 72.40. Below 72.40, you're entering the territory right here of possibly seeing 66. Again, heck of a stretch, but just some of the levels to possibly consider because they do stack up as supports near them. So if we break below 78 ultimately, well, okay, let's keep it 77.66. You know, if we want to be technical, we can take a short easily. I think our first take profit could be 73.70, maybe down to 74. That's a great trade there where we could risk just a few cents. We could probably set our stop loss to 70, what, 79? That's not bad. Yeah, that's not, I wouldn't mind setting a stop at 79 and targeting. Honestly, I would target 73 or even down to this support here, which is at 70, 73. No, 73 is your downside target below 78. Above 90, again, you can easily target the first take profit would be at 92.40, 92.50. Above 92.40, if we can clear that, we're going to come up on 93. If we can get above 93, 95 is going to be that ultimate target to the upside. Now, what's going on in between? Because we could play some of the swings in between, but I'm not so keen on it. Now, I had a support placed here at 81.43, which was last time where we kind of buffered. You could see here, let me just plot it and then I'll trace out the history of this price action here and why I kind of chose to have it up here. So you have some history here, right? Price couldn't get above here before. We rejected down, and guess what? We came down to 77.66. But on the second attempt, we got above it, retested it, and then we had that continuation higher to this level here. Okay, so the pieces are starting to make sense. Currently, we're below the 81.48 level. It's really just chop if we want to break it down right now to the 1 hour, which we probably will. But it's probably chop here. Again, you know, this helped us identify the middle ground. This would we would call this our navigation level, our guidance level. Why? Because we've identified the channel that we're really in between, which is 90 and 78. So as long as we're in between here, we can't quite trust price action on direction, but we can get an idea of where price action might lead depending on, which guidance level we're either above or below. In this case, 84.92, which is basically our 85 level. Uh, let's call it 85 because 84, 87, you round it up 85. So if price action can get above 85, most likely we're going to start leaning towards probably 87.25, make our way towards 88.36. Above 88.36, we can look at 90, and then play that breakout there. Again, very possible we could play this, right? We can play the navigation level of 85 breaking, but at least for me, that's not my trading style because you don't have too much certainty. The certainty comes in on the breakout of trend. So if we're breaking above 90, well, most likely we're going to target the previous highs going to 92.50, then towards 95. So I would much rather, risk my money in that area rather than kind of not betting, but more so guessing, where we're going to go, because anything going on here, you're guessing. Previously, before, I remember we had a channel going basically from 88 down to, was it even here? I just remember that this is what we played with Carlos. It was so perfect when crude was basically alternating between 82 and 88. Anytime price got above 88, you can go long, and then anytime price got below 82, you can short it, and you kind of were guaranteed to make that money. But I guess the channel changed up a bit here. So again, to reiterate, this is going to be our pivot level. This is our middleman, and this is going to determine what is a better probability in the coming future. Are we going to go for our resistance, or are we going for our support? Again, this level here, it doesn't, it's just another marker for us. If we're below 81.48, again, we can kind of assume that we're going to be leaning towards the nearest support of 78, and then below 78 we make our move. But let me go ahead and actually place an alert at 77.65. Let me do that. 77.65. Perfect. So then when this goes off, we're probably going to be shorting. Again, anything here in between, you're just taking your chances. We don't want that. We want a little more clear, concise direction. Above 84, 87, again, you could take that opportunity to go long, but it's not, you don't have that certainty there behind it, because price action can just come up to 87 and then reject back down. It could come up to 88, reject back down. It might even just come up maybe 20 points, maybe towards 85, 70, and then come back down. We don't want to kind of like stare at it and take our chances. We want to know, hey, okay, we broke above 90, fine, we can target 92.50, 95. We broke below 78, fine, we can target those levels there. Here in between, it's just a good idea to just monitor, and see what price action does, how it plays out. Other than that, I mean, that's all she wrote. We covered ES and Q. We looked at gold futures, and ending it off with crude. So this was a pretty good session. Um, last but not least, I do want to take a look at really quick VIX just to see what's happening. We closed, look at that. That's so crazy. We ended up going as high as 22. No, we went to 23 before coming back down here. And the levels that I have up here, I tend to never change, so I'm not going to clear my drawing set here, because the way I plot my SNRs on the VIX is based off of what it's doing during the day, on the intraday, on the 1 hour, on the 15-minute. How is it reacting to certain levels? And then I plot those points. If I see that there is some kind of direct reaction near a certain support and resistance level, I'll plot it and I'll leave it there until I have to change. So for example, this level right here we have at 1569. It's really 1550, but every time we peak above this area here, most likely you get a sell-off in equities on ES and NQ. Most likely you're going to get that sell-off. Every time we peak below it, most likely you get a continuation higher. The main level that we always have our eyes on is 20, and every time price action builds up towards 20 or it breaks above 20, again, most likely you can assume that there is going to be some selling pressure in the market. There's going to be some downside to be expected. There's a little bit of fear going on in the market. Anytime we're below 20, and basically from 20 down to the lows of 1273, yes, you'll get some volatility on spikes up and down, but you're not really going to um, ultimately assume that the trend overall for the market is bearish. So every time, again, we get above 20, it's just a fear barometer for me at least. And I use that expectation of a sell-off to focus on where the nearest support levels are. And then, I plan a setup there. So for example, let's say VIX tomorrow, let's say, yeah, this is actually a good example. Let's say VIX tomorrow opens up above 1569. There's one of two things it's going to do. It's going to come up here to 1637 and attempt to fill this gap fill towards 1674. In turn, you would probably see a pullback down to maybe 14950 on NQ, maybe 432025 on ES, 4300 maybe. And if VIX continues to go up towards 1720 and starts breaking above it, well, most likely you can already assume that you're going to get a continuation of a breakdown and equities are going to move lower. The second thing it might do is it might just fill this gap towards 1676, and out of nowhere, right as you're near supports of 14950, maybe coming up to 15K, and ES similarly would be 4325, 4330, and the VIX decides to fill this gap and reject back down, the nearest target it can really go is going to be your support of this 1569 level. And right away, you're going to start to see equities get a little bit of juice to the upside. I would assume that, if we come up here, fill the gap, and then start heading back down towards 1569, a break of 1569, we in theory could see NQ and ES begin to break out of, I would say, NQ 15200 towards 15265, 270 area. And then ES would probably be breaking out of 4400 at that point, heading towards 4430. And then again, below 15 possibly, if we can get that, equities again could see some more upside. It's also going to depend on what and where the dollar is. I know that Carlos wanted to see that dollar below 106, and where did we end up? 105. That's beautiful. So this is an old fib I have up actually. Let me see what significance this thing has. What is this, the beginning of the year? No, this is November. Yeah, it doesn't count anymore. But nice breakdown though. Nice breakdown where, you have the 100-day EMA lining up to 104.80 basically. That's probably going to be our next support on the dollar. Let's take that off. Let's plot the dollar while we're here as well. I do like to use the fib, but only and only a specific way. There's again no right or wrong way to use it, but I usually do it based on where the chart starts from, where it ends, and from either the lowest point. So for example, we're starting here at the lowest point. I'll stretch it out from the left to the right, going from the lowest point to the highest point. And that's going to tell me kind of the main levels I need to see, oops, for long term. So we want long term. So right away it shows me, right, we are in between 106.798, which is your 38.2 level. We love this level. The 50 level, which is your support, your next support is going to be 104.32, and then your support below the 50% retracement is 61.8, and that's going to be at 101.85. The thing about this fib that I appreciate and I love is, well, at least in general with Fibonacci retracements, is the golden levels, the three levels. Now, some people don't use it this way, but this is the way I use it. I only care for 38.2, 50, and 61.8. Everything else is hoopla because it doesn't help me determine the direction basically between price action. When we're kind of in the middle ground, right? When we're not really making new highs or we're not making new lows, we're kind of just hanging out in between. It helps to kind of determine or get an idea of where we might end up going based on the three levels of 61.8, 50, and 38.2. So because we couldn't get above 38.2 and we started to reject, I mean, we did, but it kind of was a false breakout. We ended up below 106.80 basically. Our next support is down to 104.32. So if we hang out here, fine, cool. It seems like the market likes that. But the next support, for us to head lower is below 104.32. It's gonna open up room to head down to 103, down to 102, 102.50. Then we're gonna make our way down to 101.85 and below 101.85 again. Maybe we see some fireworks. It feels like as long as the dollar at the moment is really between 104 and I would even say 106 to be safe. It seems like the market doesn't mind that here. So that's with the dollar. Last but not least, also I do like to look at TNX from time to time, so we could take a look at that, which is your 10-year yield. And everyone's been raving about the 10-year heading above 50, but not once has it broke 50. It hasn't reached it. The high point was 49.97. Not bad, but still we haven't broke above 50. So and we're heading down, right? So if TNX can manage to get below 45.30, we're probably going to make our way down to 43.40, which is our 100-day EMA. Below 43.40, make our way down probably to the 200, which is at 40.37. And in turn, with the TNX going down, we should see growth side equities, which is specifically ES and NQ. We should see them head higher. Other than that, I mean, that's all she wrote. So it's been a solid session. If you have any questions, let me know. I know that the stream is kind of lagging behind, so I might just end it off. But if you're on Discord and you have any questions, let me know. I'm gonna be on there in a few, and we can go over some stuff. But other than that, I hope this has been a helpful session. I hope you guys enjoyed with me breaking down the equities, and I hope you guys are ready for a solid week ahead. Definitely have quite some opportunities coming up. Just gotta let price action develop for now. But other than that, cheers, and we'll catch you next time.